keep fighting that I got to get a patent and I can't afford a patent and I can't afford to do my product. You got to get your product out there. If you are a success with or without a patent, somebody at some point is going to come after you, meaning copy you, and that's a compliment, but you'll be the first one out. You got to get out to get money into the entity. And the second thing involved with patent, not patent, is when do you release the product? You cannot make the product perfect. If you try to make the product perfect, whatever it may or may not be, and you don't launch it, you will run out of money trying to be perfect. You got to launch it, revision 1, learn from the community. Oh, this little thing needs to improve. And then you use the money to keep improving, progress, and growing your product and making it the best it possibly can be.
Welcome to another episode of Everything Intellectual Property. Today, we have a very special guest with us. This gentleman has invented a portable vacuum system that allows you to vacuum waste in your swimming pool. Please help me welcome the founder and the CEO of Vac Daddy, Matthew Daguanno. How's it going, Matthew?
Good, Dave. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. And I must first say, man, I love the name Vac Daddy. It seems like it's just kind of a perfect name, particularly for your product. But man, I love the name of Vac Daddy. And as somebody who's kind of in IP, which we'll talk about a little later as far as trademarks and all that stuff. Now, how did you come up on that name, Vac Daddy?
So a buddy of mine, I'm in the swimming pool maintenance business for about 42 years. And we were just driving down the road from a swimming pool trade show. And it really stems from what your unconscious head is thinking, the Mac Daddy, M-A-C, Mac Daddy, Vac Daddy. We vacuum pools. It's a Vac Daddy. And our branding slogan is, who's your daddy? The Vac Daddy.
I like that one. I like that.
The Mac Daddy, if you look up the definition, there are two. Somebody doesn't really like the second one, but the first one is the best of a product. So, and then it also turns up Frank Sinatra and the Rat Pack, the Mac Daddies, stylish, quality, and that's where it came from. The Vac Daddy. Who's your daddy?
Okay, because I saw the Who's Your Daddy, but I didn't kind of maybe understand or appreciate the Mac Daddy, and that had to play a part in it as well, which is pretty cool. So I guess for those of you who don't know, and I can also bring it up as you're explaining it, the product that you've created, which essentially is a portable vacuum system for your pool. So can you kind of explain for the audience, especially if someone is listening to the podcast with the audio version and not the video version of what it is that you've invented? And like I said, I pulled it up just so those watching on the video can kind of see what it is along with your explanation.
So on a 30,000-foot view, you could label it an underwater Dyson. And what is a Dyson in vacuuming, cleaning carpets in a house? Well, this is an underwater vacuum system for swimming pools or bodies of water. And a Dyson just came along at 9,600 RPMs with a battery and just a phenomenal tool to grab off the wall when it's plugged in, push it around, easy to use, lightweight, quick, no training. So the Vac Daddy is a 10-pound unit that is going from competitors and other ways to vacuum pools in a 50, 60, 80-pound unit brought to the pool a couple of times. The Vac Daddy is 10 pounds. An 8-year-old child or your 90-year-old grandmother in a wedding dress could vacuum a pool. I don't know why your grandmother's in a wedding dress, but she could vacuum a pool with no training with the Vac Daddy. You lean over to an outlet, plug it in, put it on a pole, and just vac it. Push it back and forth, just like vacuuming a carpet.
So, and let me ask you this: for someone who's, as I was growing up, I know we were talking about kind of me going to Michigan State University. When I was at MSU in undergrad, I worked facilities, going through cleaning different classrooms as an odd job, just kind of make some money here and there. And we had these portable vacuums on, and we, like you said, had the pole in the head, and we would go through classroom and vacuum carpet and whatever the case may be. Did that thing not previously exist for pools? Because I know what I'm used to pool just from maybe TV shows is you have the pole with the net and you're going through and you're picking up stuff from the top of the pole. However, were you not able to vacuum like the pool floors as you would have done with like just a living room or a bedroom floor?
Okay. So if we're sticking with the metaphor with carpet vacuuming, you could have a canister vac. You could have central home vac. But you need a motor and a filter somewhere. So canister vac, you're dragging it behind you. Central vacuuming in a house, it's somewhere in the garage. So back to the swimming pools, you need an enormous pump. Normally it's like a 45-pound motor, 2.5 feet long, whatever, heavy, 45 pounds. You need a pretty big filter. You're either going to use the homeowner's system, filter and pump that circulates the pool, and hook up a hose to it and clog that filter, or you're going to bring a pump and a filter to the side of the pool, 2 trips from your truck, put it together, vacuum the pool, 2 trips back. That's 4 trips total. The Vac Daddy's 2 trips. So everything I say is going to show you how you get more work done quicker, lighter, easier, more efficient. You make more money, period. That's all there is to it. But you would have to bring this equipment, 60, 70, 80 pounds. Then there's other competitors, ways to vacuum a pool, which you asked about, where if you take a wheelchair, the wheels on the size of a wheelchair, they have a huge cart with a massive battery operating system that if you come to stairs, you bounce it up and down the stairs. You have to lift it and put it on the hitch on the back of your truck. It's a lot of money. It's heavy. You have to charge the battery. And that's another vacuum system that you bring to the side of the pool. The Vac Daddy is in a thing called a Vac Caddy. It's similar to luggage in the airport. It has a handle that telescopes up. It has wheels. 1 trip to the yard, take this 10-pound unit, put it on a pole. You could be 8 years old, push it back and forth and vacuum. So you get about 40% more vacuuming done in a day if you're a swimming pool guy. And if you want me to continue on that note with the money, you could take a truck that used to earn you $1,000 a day with all the heavy equipment, and now you're getting $1,400 a day. That's similar to a 40% raise in one day. You don't buy a new truck, CapEx. You don't hire another worker. You don't have to train other workers, and you don't have to carry around heavy equipment. So the worker benefits because he or she makes more money, and the company benefits because its sales go up by 40%. Right. Vac Daddy pays for itself in 3 days.
No, and that's sweet. So what was, and one of the things that I love about just entrepreneurship is no one size fits all model. You have some cases where people are completely novice in the industry that they're kind of inventing. And seems like in your case, this is what you did for 40 years or 40 plus years. You talked about 42 years. So you kind of knew the shortcomings or the pitfalls of vacuuming pools. So what was that moment like for you when, I guess, the light bulb went off? Obviously, seems like money was a big part of it as far as having to hire people with trucks or whatever the case may be, and saying, okay, it has to be a better way to do this. But what was it? And it seems like in your case, it was not like an overnight thing where this kind of took some time, days, years, to kind of continue to invent and kind of R&D or whatever the case may be. But what was that initial period for you to be like, okay, man, I have to take it upon myself, given the shortcomings and the pitfalls in the market, to create my own Vac Daddy or the vacuum cleaner for a pool that's lightweight, durable, and saves money, and so forth and so on?
Correct. It's a very good question, and it's a longer period of time for an idea to then patent it and to pay an engineer to develop it, then to have it physically, empirically made, and then produced in sales. There are so many aspects. Even if your product is an amazing idea, there are so many other things, as you know, as an IP attorney, that can, stop you or prevent things from occurring, or you run out of money. So 30-something years ago, I knew that well water was pumped up through a pipe 30 feet down, 50 feet down with electricity, and everything was parallel. There was a pipe and there was a motor, and it went in a well and it pushed water. And I said, hey, there's got to be a better way than me carrying 70, 80 pounds of equipment, 2 trips there, 2 trips back, 4 trips. I've done personally, this old man with a little kink in his neck, 22,000 plus swimming pools I vacuum times 4 trips is 88,000 trips of 70 pounds. I know I should look like Arnold, but I don't. And I don't have a maid either. That was a joke. So I had this idea, and well water is run by 120 volt electricity. And the bottom line was I couldn't figure out how to not electrocute people. You can't put 120 volts directly into water. So somewhere, you just asked, the aha moment, the idea was back in the early 90s. And in 2008, I was in my backyard and I was playing in my above ground pool with another type of cleaner. And I had an aha moment. And I said, there it is.
Yep.
Convert the 120 volt electricity to 30 volts, DC, direct current. And that's exactly what your cell phone charger brick, that little part that you plug in. Yep. If you put 120 volts into your phone would catch on fire and melt. So that inverter or converter, I just have a larger one because I'm doing 30 volts. And that was the electricity solution. And then in 15, so in 08, I had that. 08, there were some issues in the world, money problems, this and that, real estate, banking. So in 2015, I filed for the patent. And then I hired an engineer, 2-3 years engineer, made it in China in 2020, 21. And then I moved it to the United States of America in 23. And we're made in Scranton, Pennsylvania by Jed Pools. And off to the races. And there's a utility patent, there's 3 design patents, and then there's about 4 utility patents pending, floating into the future, because I have 2, 3, or 4 other products, accessories to the Vac Daddy to make it more user-friendly in different environments.
Yep.
You know, I'm one of the only vacuum systems, it's a 4-in-1 vacuum system that my system with a small attachment that cost me about 80 grand to develop. We have a thing called vacuum to waste. When there's a sandstorm or a big storm or a flood or a hurricane and tons of debris go in the bottom of the pool, you cannot filter it out. You have to throw it out with water, the baby with the bath water. It's called vacuuming the pool to waste. There's too much debris. You will clog your filter in one stroke of the vac head. So we, Vac Daddy, the only system on the planet, and I know that because I don't vacuum pools on the moon. There's no water on the moon. So we have a vacuum to waste. We do something like clean a pool that hasn't been cleaned in 7 days. Once a week, you go clean a pool. Then our unit can also remove water at 3,600 gallons per hour, which equates to a sump pump. And then we have another connector and a little accessory called a shallow water adapter. If you have a fountain that's 6 inches deep, 50 by 100, there's not many vacuum systems out there that can vacuum in 8 inches of water. We can lay our unit down on the side, connect a thing called a shallow water adapter, and you can vacuum a 50 by 100 fountain with an extremely, extremely powerful unit. We do 60 gallons per minute in that unit. The 45-pound system that I carried with 22,000 pools does approximately 44 gallons per minute, and the Vac Daddy's doing 60. So who's your daddy?
Right. I love it, and I love that. And so it seems like you really have kind of 2 things going on now with, okay, you have the operation or the services of cleaning the pools, but then you're kind of developing not only the product line of Vac Daddy and the actual vacuum system, but then these different accessories, which, that's definitely fascinating. It seems like typically when that person has that aha moment, then it's like kind of euphoria, but it seems like in your case, 2008, we all know things were going on in the world. You weren't able to kind of really get going on it until 7 years later, 2015, filing the patent applications. And this is much like, this is something definitely a lot bigger. So I would imagine, like you said, R&D engineers or whatever the case may be, and that didn't actually come into fruition in terms of a product until 2021, around that time frame. So this seems like this has been a long time coming, which wow, it's interesting. But I guess, and I wanted to ask you this question, because I was reading that you were pretty much bred for Wall Street. I know you're in the New York area. You had real estate, different things like that. So what ultimately got you in swimming pools to begin with? Because it seems like that's a unique story to say, okay, I'm kind of bred for this trajectory with Wall Street, and then again, real estate, whatever the case may be. And then all of a sudden you seem like to do a 180-degree turn and say, I want to get off into swimming pools. What was just kind of that original, how did that happen to begin with?
Well, I'm going to tap you on the back and say great research and great question. So, I was a young kid and my parents got divorced and I grew up in somewhat of a nice neighborhood, and then all my friends went on vacation and did all this stuff and their parents were doing well. And I'm 13 and, I don't have any backing behind me financially. So I went to a very good high school, Chaminade, Mineola. It's prep school. It's harder in college. It made me who I am. And I didn't have any money to pay for college. So cleaning swimming pools was paid by the unit. So the faster I ran and the faster I worked and the more pools I did in a day, 6 days a week, 12, 13 hours a day, I made money to pay for college. I probably paid for about 72% of my college and then some loans on the top. So I'm proud of that. And then, because I went to that prep school, I live a half hour away from Wall Street. I'm in a town that most people, families and whatnot, work there. And I was bred to go there, and I was hired for a job. And then I went and visited a stepsister in Colorado and said, I'm not coming back. I stayed in a ski town for 6 months. And then I went back to my pool job and decided I was going to start a pool company. I was very impatient as a young man. I did not want to listen to a boss who I thought didn't know as much as me. And then his nephew gets a position 10 years later because he's family, and I get the boot. So I didn't need the doctor, lawyer, Indian chief title. I just was a workaholic and wanted to work and make money, and I didn't want to wait till I was 28 or 30 or 35 to start making money. And I just started my own business with 5 clients and then worked it up to a significant size company. And I've been doing that for 35 years. And then the idea to Vac Daddy was in the early 90s, and it just happened. And I, even in your world, 2015, you filed the patent. When are you getting that? I got that in 19. And then what they do is they back up and say, well, you actually got it in 15 when you applied. And I lost 4 years on the 20-year term. So
because when you file the application, not once it gets awarded.
That's not when it gets awarded.
Or issued. Yep, it's not when it gets issued. Like you said, it issued 2019, but you filed in 2015. So theoretically, like you said, those 4 years of patent term is okay, up in the air.
And if you want to hang a little bit on patents, so a lot of people, whoever these wonderful people are that are creative and they have an idea, you need to do your research. You need to ask questions of everybody you know. Go find someone that's done it so you can learn and not do the same mistakes that others have done in the past. You're still going to make mistakes, but you got to push through. So one of them is, do you get a patent? And then if you choose to get a patent, how far do you go with that? Do you go the EU and the international and the 28 countries and China and this and that? And then everything costs money, and then paying the fees to the European lawyer contact. And one guy said to me, you only need a patent if you're going to defend yourself with it. If you're going to use it to defend yourself. If you keep fighting that I got to get a patent and I can't afford a patent and I can't afford to do my product, you got to get your product out there. If you are a success with or without a patent, somebody at some point is going to come after you, meaning copy you, and that's a compliment, but you'll be the first one out. You got to get out to get money into the entity. And the second thing involved with patent, not patent, is when do you release the product? You cannot make the product perfect. If you try to make the product perfect, whatever it may or may not be, and you don't launch it, you will run out of money trying to be perfect. You got to launch it, revision 1, learn from the community. Oh, this little thing needs to improve. And then you use the money to keep improving, progress, and growing your product and making it the best it possibly can be.
And you know what? It's interesting that you said that, because I always say, apart from doing these interviews, I kind of do current events of IP, because there's a lot of IP that goes on in the world on a week-to-week basis. And I always say, hey, and this extends beyond just patents, whether it's a trademark or a copyright, whatever the case may be. If you're not going to enforce your patent or your IP, there's no point of getting it. Now, I don't know. Yeah, you have to kind of decide what's the best business decision or strategic way to go about things. But if you're not going to defend your IP, then there's no use of getting it. But then there's always, like, on the flip side, as you talked about, if you release a product and people are going to copy it, which can be looked at as a badge of honor, and I agree with that. But if you don't have any kind of teeth in it, then I guess you have no recourse. So it's almost like it's not even worth being an entrepreneur if you're going to develop IP and not protect it. Because if you're not going to protect your IP and you just want to sell it, then somebody else is going to, first of all, it can be tough to get maybe investing, and whether you want to sell the product or the business. A lot of times companies and people want to see that it's protected via IP. patents, whatever the case may be. So it's almost like a kind of a catch-22 with that. Then I think one of the definitely the things that you mentioned as far as not trying to wait until your stuff is perfect before selling it, and actually can work against you because a lot of times, again, as you talked about, when you release something and it's successful and people want to copy it, to the extent that the patent is still pending and you probably don't have their stuff copied because they try to switch something, and you can kind of have this continuation application to write claims to cover what they're doing. But if you try to wait till the patent is issued, you cannot, for the most part, reopen prosecution to kind of go back and write claims to cover what somebody is doing if they're making a small modification. So in that sense, if you're trying to wait for everything to be perfect before you release the product, whatever the case may be, then it can hurt you because you can't go through and go back and file continuation applications to write claims. And that's, I guess, more so from a strategic side on the IP side. But yeah, that was a mouthful that you said, but I think it was true in a lot of ways.
There's a lot, you're correct. And there's a lot of discussion. I speak in metaphors. If you're investing in something, someone just doesn't say, yeah, buy gold. What is that person's investment objective? Are you 80 years old and you don't want to risk? Are you 20? Do you have risk tolerance? Blah, blah, blah. Yep. So with a product, it's similar. It's you go down the path of, get a patent. Yeah, but if you get a patent and you spend all your money or you waste 2 years not launching your product to get a patent because you want to defend this thing that you believe is going to be great and everybody's going to copy it, and you go down that objective and it turns out the product doesn't work and it fails or it catches on fire and it causes people problem, and then people don't buy it because they read that it catches on fire and could kill people, then it doesn't matter you have a patent because you ain't defending nothing.
For sure.
And then if you have a patent and it's successful, nobody's going to copy an unsuccessful product, right? I mean, there are crazy people and they can do whatever they want, or they're not crazy. They just love what they think. Yep. And they will copy something that's garbage and then they don't make any money. But the goal is to be successful, get your product out. You got to get it out before it's perfect. Do you have to get the money for the patent? And then even if it's a successful idea, I know a guy who he was developing Giorgio Armani custom crafted electric e-bikes like 15 years ago. He had the rights in Italy. They were gorgeous. But when he bought his first chunk of inventory, he sold 70% of his company. And then when all the bikes sold, which could be the definition of success, and he needs to reorder, he's got no money left to reorder, and he's got no control. And yet it was a great idea, and it was theoretically a successful product, but it didn't continue as a business because there are so many issues that the patent and making something perfect, people lean towards. And then in public, they'll see, this is why you got to do your research. You see all the advertising about this guy's going to help invent help, and help you in inventing. Guess who makes the money on 99% of ideas that don't reach fruition and make money become a business? All the guys helping you to try to do that. And now you're out all that money.
For sure.
And patents are expensive. I mean, I'm not right. I mean, it depends on how far you go with it. You should file it before you start talking publicly about it.
Yep.
Right? That's your specialty. But it should not be spoken about and or 100 of them sold to the public, because then it's public domain idea. And then it could be later down the road proven that when you filed, you had already sold for a year and a half and people knew about your product. So therefore, it's not a patentable new idea invention. It's public domain, right?
For sure. No, you're absolutely right with that. And I always recommend to people, to your point, to file a provisional application, which is for a small entity, $100, whatever the case may be. And now you can kind of do research and maybe development and probably get the product out there to see, is it worth, kind of continuing on with it, converting that provisional application to a non-provisional, maybe filing a PCT application to go out there, protecting the product in different countries. So yeah, that provisional application can go a long way it can go a long way for you. And, you may find out that it's not worth converting to a non-provisional, or you may find out, yes, it's not only worth converting to a non-provisional, but protecting it in other countries as well. So yeah, it's a lot of strategy that definitely goes into it. Now, did you know about IP? Because it seems like coming from the pool side of things, just kind of cleaning out the pools, maybe you protected the name via a trademark, but it seems like you've kind of definitely learned a lot more, particularly with regard to patents, and maybe even trademarks, kind of trademarking different names or whatever the case may be. Once you start to kind of develop the product Vac Daddy, so did you kind of know about IP before all that, or did you just kind of come into learning about it as you were going through it in real time?
So I'm gonna honor to your viewers that you are correct. Please take David advice on the provisional patent is inexpensive. You're just putting a placeholder that this was my idea, and then put yourself in the position of, I don't know, a few people have had babies since the last time I checked, but there's about 8 billion people. Do you think you're the only person that thought of, I don't know, a cell phone charger? There's a guy in India that also thought of it last week. So the world has human beings with brains, and many people are creative. So you're going to put a placeholder with a provisional patent on your idea. Is it a company yet? Did you build it yet? No, but lock in the idea in a moment in time. And then when I did that, and they would explain it to you, prior art, which just means other people that had similar ideas in the past that the patent office checks and says, no, you looked this up. This was some other guy's idea in 1960. There were 3 or 4 guys that had some serious ideas similar to mine, lightweight on a pole, parallel, pool cleaner, underwater. However, they were going to murder people because they had, a GFCI hooked up that if your hairdryer trips in the bathroom, and it was wired with switches in a swimming pool with water and human beings that don't like to be electrocuted. It's just a fact. Most people don't like it. Some people do, maybe mass murderers or something. But the provisional patent is very important. What you said, the learning, go back 15 years. Can I say things like this about the patent? No. And I'm going to make a joke, and I hope Mark Cuban or whoever's listening on Shark Tank, because I went for 2 or 3 interviews on Shark Tank, didn't get on the show. It's very difficult to get on a show according to numbers. But when Mark Cuban's on that show and you watch it and someone walks up on the carpet, and Mark Cuban, who, let's pretend he's got $1 billion, might have a little bit more. And he asks them, how hard are you working? And they go 90 days. And then they say, how much did you spend? And Mark Cuban, they answer with $22,000. Mark Cuban's jaw drops, like 22 grand is a lot of money to a billionaire. And I'm on my couch throwing stuff. I didn't use the French word. I'm throwing stuff across the room. It's me and friends and family that invested in my company. $2.5 million, 10 years, engineers, patent attorneys, product development, China, problems with shipping, COVID. You name it, and there ain't no 90 days and $22,000 and a billionaire thinks that's effort. That ain't effort. You gotta put your heart and soul into it and never give up. Who's your daddy?
Man, that's it's crazy. I want to say interesting, but it's more like you really believed in it, because again, this is not like a lot of the products that you see on a Shark Tank where it's just a widget. Maybe it isn't as much going into it to kind of develop and sell or whatever the case may be. You had to really believe in it to say, okay, I'm going to spend all this time on R&D, on engineering, on kind of perfecting the supply chain, spending over $2 million over that 10-year period to say, I'm going to come out with that product. Obviously, you were kind of working within the industry. So it maybe made sense from that standpoint as well to have a product that you can use that helps you out personally. But to say, okay, I'm gonna develop this thing to kind of to sell to maybe other pool cleaners or maybe someone at home who wants to do it themselves, as opposed to hiring a company. You have to really believe in it to say, okay, I'm gonna kind of go through that or maybe you just didn't know that the process was going to be what it was as far as the time and the money invested into it.
Yes, but that's a part of it. You don't know what you don't know. And I hope this podcast, I'm nobody special. I'm just some guy. And I am not saying, taking anything away from anybody at Shark Tank, because then you got other stories where there's a guy in there for 15 years busting his butt and doing this and doing that. And then he's successful. And someone's like, oh, you got lucky. You got lucky. 18 years, 80 hours a week, and I'm successful. And you want to blame it on luck. Yeah. That ain't luck. Luck ain't got that. That's me. Yeah. I was blamed for 18 years for it failing, and now a stranger thinks it's successful and thinks I got lucky. Right?
Yeah. No, yeah, you're right about that. No, you're definitely right about that, which I think it kind of leads into a great segue of Amazon's Buy It Now. Again, you talked about maybe trying to go into Shark Tank a couple of times. And I know I've interviewed a lot of the Shark Tank guests over the years. And it seemed like maybe whatever reason, not being able to make it on that. So what was that mindset to say, okay, let's go on to Buy It Now? Because a lot of people haven't heard of Buy It Now, and it kind of recently over the last month or so, I kind of heard of it and started to kind of do a little bit more deep dive, watch the episode. So what made you say, or maybe they came to you, but what made you say, okay, I need to go into this platform and kind of get Vac Daddy out to the masses?
Right. So I drove down to Baltimore, 2 days, 3 months of paperwork to get on to interviews or auditions of Vac Daddy on Shark Tank. I apologize. And then, I didn't get on. 1 million people try out across the country. 4 people are on an episode. An episode lasts what? They only do 4 of them a season. I mean, you're talking about 12 people in a year and over 1 million apply. So a producer saw it, liked it, and they're trying to imitate similar to Shark Tank, Buy It Now. It was a show in Australia. JB Smoove was on it. They flew me out to LA last March, and here's a horror story. You could be in a movie, Dave, and you were filmed in Mission Impossible 3 or whatever, but when it got to the cutting room floor, there's only an hour and 50 minutes of the movie, and you were part of a 3-hour movie, and 3-hour movie didn't exist. You were filmed, you were paid, you went to the site, the sets, but you didn't get in the movie. That happens all the time on Shark Tank. You get told you won. You're going on. You're there. You're interviewed, and you never air. So I'm in LA, and I'm, to spend the amount of years, I really can't tell you. Was it 30 years ago I had the idea? Was it 15 when I filed the patent? Was it 2018 when an engineer said it would take 9 months and 50 grand to develop the product in a 3D drawing, and it took 3.5 years and 450,000? And I see him to the day, if he was in here right now, I say, "What's up, man? How you doing? You agreed that you got paid your 450,000? You agreed that you said it was 50 and it was 9 months? No, he won't agree to that." I said, "Will you agree you won't do that to the next person? Because that's a serious lie. That's what it is. It's not a lie. It's not misleading. It's a lie. It's 10 times the amount in 3.5 years. So, you got to watch all that stuff. That's the research you got to do. I'm sorry I segue. So
that's good. That's the real, and sorry to cut you off, but that's part of the show, because I want to give people the real, that is going to be just like you said, it's going to be people who try to say, I can help you get this thing sold or whatever the case may be, and that turns up to be a lie. But it's people who also is going to say, I can help you manufacture the product, develop it, and 9 times out of 10, either they can't, or it's going to be a lot more expensive and a lot more time than what they're leading you on. So just as the audience member who's looking to do this, be on the lookout for those people, and don't be surprised if it kind of comes to you, just because it is people out there who unfortunately does this stuff, tell lies.
Sleep on every decision, and before you make the decision, do your research. Go call 3 people. I don't need to know everything, and neither does the president of the United States. When he wants military stuff, he talks to 5 generals, 5-star generals that are generals for 30 years. Yeah. Get their opinion, and you make the decision because you're the boss of your invented product. Go do your research. So the hill you're going to climb is crazy, because 99% of stuff fails, even if it's a good idea. But don't give up. So I go to the show. This was the tie-in back there. We're going to the show. I go out to the show. I'm a workaholic. I like to keep busy. I'm active. I don't know. I can't sit still. I'm crazy. So I go out to Hollywood. They put me in this green room with another guy that's going on the show, and they watch you go to the bathroom. They walk with you to the bathroom. They open up the bathroom so no one's in there, because you're not allowed to talk to each other, because it's a game show. You're not allowed to share information. And at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, they say, sit in here and wait. I was like, dude, I could not be a movie star. They sit around in a trailer for 6 hours, and you got to go act like you're happy. I'm going bananas. So I was telling New York sarcastic jokes. I don't know. The door was open. I think I'm in California. Maybe I said something wrong. So it's 8:30 at night. The kid that was with me, I get my costume, wardrobe, makeup. They hit me with that big white powder thing from the 20s. I'm kidding. I asked them for that. They thought it was funny. I said, where's the makeup thing, or the fluff girl? No, we can't go into that. So the guy in the room with me goes on. The producer walks in and shuts the door. This is like 9 hours sitting in a room. She walks 2 feet from my face, and she says, "Man, you're going home." And I was, really? I was devastated. Emotionally, I know men don't admit this shit, emotionally devastated. And then my biggest pet peeve is not knowing. I don't care if you did something. Tell me, I move on. She wouldn't tell me why. So I'm like, oh, man, I made some stupid joke. Democratic people in California, I don't know. What did I say? Someone overheard. They didn't like me. I don't know. I blame myself. I fly back home. I go take my flight tomorrow, Friday. I'm not waiting till Saturday. Fly me back. Monday, I get a call from the girl I was talking to for 4 months with applications, flew out there, blah, blah, blah. And she said, oh, the union just ran out of time. They couldn't do any more filming that night. So you just get cut. And she said, you want to come back out tomorrow night on the red eye, 2 a.m, flew back out to California, a week later, that Wednesday, sat in a room for 6 hours. And then JB Smooth, I had to memorize. I'm lied. 100 people, the Ring doorbell guy, a woman that wrote gluten-free recipe books, a large buyer from Amazon, and 100 people in cameras. And I'm in a white, like, pimp outfit with a cowboy hat, my cowboy boots. And I got to memorize this thing for 90 seconds to my presentation. And JB Smooth comes up to me about a foot from my face. And he kind of attacked me. I'm from New York, but I'm on the show going, I got to be nice. And I was like, what? And he yelled at me. Do you know what you're doing? Did you know that I was going to be here? And I went, yeah. I just was passive. I went, yeah. You trying to upstage me? Your boots and your hat. I got custom boots. They're going to bury me in my boots. This is him talking. And he was just reaming me. And he's making fun. He's just doing his skit as the host. Yeah. But, kind of coming at me right before I got to perform. But I did my thing, did what I had to do, took care of it, and got back on. But that day was devastating. That day was hardcore when I didn't know why I was shunned. This opportunity that has potential for many viewers. Because all you want someone to do with your product, going back to people with products, you want people to be aware that it exists. Then they do their research. Then they go, I don't like it, I like it. Then they do research, and then they decide if they want to buy or not buy, and then the price and then the quality. But you first have to get eyeballs to make it aware. And I always tell this story. This is another thing with a product that's very, very difficult that you don't expect because you think your product's great. And it most likely is. Your product's great. When the iPhone came out in 2008, people would touch this thing and they'd go, oh, this is nice. And then they'd look at you and go, yeah, but where are the buttons? And you go, where? Did you just say, I just gave you a round wheel, touchscreen, and you got a BlackBerry with buttons, square wheel, and you're asking,
where's the button?
I want my square wheel back. Now, that has to do with early adopters can only believe in the new product. Everybody else doesn't like change.
Yep.
The people that have Apple iPhones, ask them to change. So when I launched the product, fought the engineers, spent the money, all the years, the patents, getting it done, a perfect product, not perfect, an improved product, revision 1, revision 2, keep making it better. The hardest thing in the world after you conquered all of that is to have somebody change their habits. If they like Coca-Cola, you get them to drink Pepsi. How do you do that? Because you're showing them that it's a better product. It's 10 pounds compared to 80. And some guy's been doing this at work for 30 years. He's an old dog and a new trick. And in the pool business, a lot of old dogs clean pools the way they do it. And you're like, look, I am you. I vacuum 22,000 pools. I'm an arrogant pool guy just like you, buddy. In the pool business. I met a guy, so I get to brag 42 years. Since I was 17, I'm in the industry. I met a guy, he hit me with 52, and I was like, what? And I'm 59. He was 45. I'm like, what are you talking about? I know that numbers don't work. But he's like, no, I've been working with my dad since I was 6. I don't know if you get to claim working at 6 next to your dad as being in the industry and driving around doing pools. But he had me beat, and I was being an arrogant pool guy bragging about my time in, and he has more than me. So God bless him. I'm in California somewhere.
No, and this is interesting because I interviewed Wayne Fromm, who invented the selfie stick, and again, it seems like kind of what you're saying as far as, hey, when it's a new product and people don't kind of know how to use it, that can be difficult to be able to kind of teach people how they, number one, that is better than what they've been doing, but then number two, how this thing works, especially at the packaging or whatever the case may be, not as clear. So that definitely seems to be interesting. The other the thing that you said that I thought was was interesting, and I think I go back to Steve Jobs on this one, because he had the mindset of people don't know what they want until I tell them what they need to have, or what they want, or whatever the case may be. And I always thought that was interesting, especially as I kind of have been doing this more and more, to the point where it's like, okay, people, they don't know that they needed the iPhone and why this thing is better than a BlackBerry with these square buttons or whatever the case may be. So it's almost like your job as an inventor to be able to kind of get that across and let them know. And I don't know, maybe you agree with that, maybe you disagree with it. But I thought that was an interesting philosophy of Steve Jobs, and it seems like kind of in your case, it's almost like a similar thing. It was like, okay, people for whatever reason they know, but it's kind of almost your job or my job or Steve Jobs, job to kind of let them know why they need this thing and why they want this thing, which I guess ultimately can be a difficult thing to do.
So I think you're, Dave, you're very insightful, and in my opinion, because everybody has one. You're 100% correct. It's the masses talking to people and presenting a product to them, or knowledge, or however you want to say that. They don't know what they don't know. People that were using BlackBerries were not Steve Jobs inventing progressive and improving electronic products and cultural things. So that was his job. Your job was to use them. So he brought out stuff that you didn't know you needed or wanted. And that's the eyeball comment. We go back to that. People have to be aware that your product exists. If they say, no, I don't want it, you did your job. So if we go back to buy it now, the game show is based on 100 studio members. Audience is supposed to vote. And if you get 10 or more that vote, red and green lights. And if they want your product and would buy it at the price, and you got 10 or more, you got to speak to the judges. I did not get that. I got 7. And I'll give you the example why I got 7. 100 people in the audience. How many people have pools?
Probably not that many.
7% of the country has pools. If people wanted it, 7 people have 100, which equals 7%. But I didn't get the 10, because even if the price was $20, it's not, and people said they liked it, I'm in the middle of this 90-second speech, memorized and dealing with cameras, and 60% of the audience turned red before I even finished talking, and it was hurting me, and it was blowing my mind. Go, what do I do? Wait, I'm not done. How are you voting? But 10 minutes later, backstage, I went, the 100 people, it doesn't matter, because if they didn't have pools, they wouldn't say yes to it. So I didn't get 10 yeses.
No, and that's was one of the questions I had wrote down as far as the difficulty of making that pitch, because just kind of thinking about it, like I said, I've watched a number of episodes now where 10 out of 100, 10%, that doesn't seem that much to get to the panel of judges. Like you said, you got 7 of them, but it has to be hard to see all that red, to see people before you get done doing your pitch, to see that people are kind of going out before you get done, which is interesting. And I like your what you said about kind of number of people have pools. But then the other thing that you kind of said that I was going to ask you about in terms of the price, and I think that this can be interesting or helpful to the audience to be able to say the difficulty, or I shouldn't say the difficulty, but the challenges of selling something that has a higher price point. And I would, similar to the iPhone, right? You come out and you say this product costs $1,500 or $2,000, and the average folks can't even understand kind of spending that amount of money on a singular product compared to, something simple as like a cup of coffee or whatever that you're going to spend $5, $10, $20 or maybe $30. Okay, they can maybe relate to that a little bit more. But if, you're kind of having a product that costs a little bit more, the challenges of trying to kind of sell that to just the average person.
Well, that's a whole conversation about value and money. So, you never undersell the value of your product, which is defined by a math equation called money. And then the customer or the audience or the public out there, do the guys that buy $7, $8, $9 cups of coffee, $7 a day times 7 times 4 weeks, $198 a month times 12, $2,400, add the taxes back in because that's net. Do you know you just spent $3,200 a year on coffee, and you won't buy an iPhone that will function to communicate with your world for $1,200 because it's a lot of money. Yep. So the understanding of value to money is where I was going with that conversation. They value, the store with an S that sells expensive coffee. Yep. The people decide what they do with their money, whether they have a lot or not. There are guys that don't have a lot of money, don't have a house, don't have a car, and yet they smoke cigarettes, and that's 10 grand a year. So what you spend your money on, you're selling something. Oh, I don't have the money. No, you're not choosing to see the value in this, and you're not purchasing it.
Right.
But you will find money for the cigarettes or the coffee because you want it.
Yeah.
It's not the money that stopped you. Otherwise, go to Dunkin' Donuts and get one for $3.
Right.
But it's all relative. So my unit looks like a little thing visually, and it looks like another product out there that's a toy that's maybe $200. But that thing breaks all the time and has a battery, doesn't do 60 gallons a minute, doesn't lift water. It's called head, 20 feet in the air. That's extraordinary if there's an engineer listening. What I just said, 20 feet in the air. There's a $1 billion manufacturer, that 45-pound pump, and they only lift water 10 feet in the air. I lift water 20 feet in the air, and mine is 10 pounds, and I'm some little guy, and I'm not a $1 billion company. I'm just short of it. I'm like 958 million. No, I'm kidding. But I don't do just short of $1 billion in sales, because maybe I'd have someone else doing the interview.
No, not yet. Not yet, at least. Not yet.
Not yet. But money is determined by what you want it for. My unit's about $1,300, the base unit, and it compares to 600,000 robotic pool cleaners. Throw it in the pool, takes 2 to 3 hours to work. And then within 2 to 3 years, you're bringing it to the repair shop, and they say it's an $800-900 bill. And the guy with the money with the pool, he throws it away, and he spends another $1,300 on a robot. My unit would be handed down generations in the family. It's a commercial grade unit, $1,300. You could clean a pool in 15 minutes with an 8-year-old child. Period.
No, there you go. There you go. And man, the cool thing from a selfish standpoint of doing these interviews, especially with, like you talked about having a $1 billion company, having somebody else do the interviews, is doing these interviews with people who are still in that startup phase with the product or their service, knowing that, hey, one day you're going to be a multi-million or $1 billion, company, and just being able to say, okay, I was able to kind of get in on the ground floor as far as interview that person when they were getting started, and next thing you know, 5-10 years later, made it to the big leagues. And hey, look, man, I'm definitely, wishing that success on you. I guess the last couple questions that I have for you, and this was very insightful. I guess number one, what was your biggest challenge that you had to overcome? Because again, you had a lot of kind of irons in a fire, let's just say, with the amount of time, the amount of money, or whatever the case may be with the product. So what was probably the biggest challenge that you had to overcome kind of going through this whole process that's been, 17 years in the making?
Wow. Imagine me not having an answer. That never happens. It's because I'm a guy in my brain. And if you came home to your wife, she said, "How was your day?" The guy would go, "Fine." I need a detail for my brain to open up. And that's such a wide thing because you're hitting it. It was 17 years. The hardest thing is that it's similar to I was 20 and I worked 8 hours a week, and I would look at guys I'd hire and work with them. And I was an arrogant pool guy. And I really thought, Dave, that everybody worked 80 hours a week. I honestly, in my soul, believed that. But I came across then as that terrible word, arrogant something, because the person listening didn't do that. And I was putting that pressure on them. So I was completely not in their shoes. But I was giving you credit that I thought you worked this, doesn't everybody work this hard? I don't know. I wasn't putting you down and saying, isn't everybody a bum and I'm special? I wasn't doing that. So with the product, it's the same thing. I have a thought and a belief system that this thing is amazing and it will help, and it's lightweight. You won't have a broken neck like me the rest of my life for carrying all that and working 13-hour days doing that stuff. And you can make more money, be more efficient, and it's progress. Yeah. So the hardest part is that, I got to keep explaining to people that it's a really good idea and it works and you should try it and change, and the push button conversation on the phone, people have finally, oh yeah, right? 17 years later, it's in your car, the touch screen. It's everywhere. You couldn't live without it. But some guy wanted buttons. So the hardest part is that perseverance and every day being hit in the head with a bat and going, well, that's delayed 3 months and I got to put in more money and more money and more money. However, to make your audience feel good, I did know a guy that he started a company in 2001. I was hanging out with him about 2 years ago. So he's running it for 22 years. He's got 45 SKUs, which is a product, 45 different products in a similar business. And I sat with him, and when I was 3 years in, and I still haven't made any money, I haven't made $1 myself personally. He shared with me that it took him 9 years before he got a paycheck. Now, what that did was it didn't say, oh, Matt, you got 5 more years to go. It said, Matt, you're not as much of a loser and failing at this as you think, Matt, So it gave me hope that, it does take longer and losing money for all these years is normal. And there is a pot of gold, a little short green leprechaun guy somewhere in the future. So maybe it'd be a girl instead of a leprechaun. But it's a long haul. But the real exciting thing, and this is public information, I don't care if people don't talk about money at the kitchen table, but we lost a ton of money in 2023. That would be our third year selling, about $430,000 on the tax return. And in 24, we lost $50,000. And if anybody's out there can figure out what I just said,
that's good. In my opinion,
$380,000 push in a positive direction. We still lost money. But so what's going to happen this year? That my main guy, Alan Palmer, shout out to him. He's the sales manager, partner, investor, been there since the beginning, sacrifice, 7 years, might say 8, might say 9. Hustling. We spoke today, and he figured out that, hey, by the end of the year, we're doing great year-to-date sales, and we're going to be profitable 2025. And that's 5 years to not bewilder or have someone believe I'm just going to drop this product somewhere and everything's going to work. You got to hustle.
Awesome. No, and again, I think this that was a perfect segue into the final question. And again, you gave a lot of advice, but just kind of be directed with the question, what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs? Because again, you talked about perseverance. You talked about working 80 hours. You've been through situations where you was kind of applied to Shark Tank a couple of times, didn't get it. You were doing the Amazon buy it now, had to get sent home and go back and kind of go through that process. And again, lastly, you just talked about increasing, even though you're still maybe not as, making as much money, and talk to the guy who was losing money for almost 10 years. And you're like, okay, I'm better than he is, more or less. So what advice would you give to the aspiring entrepreneur who is maybe playing that double Dutch game? Do I get off into entrepreneurship? Do I not? We all got ideas. And look, as an attorney, IP attorney, the number one thing that I get when I tell people that I'm a patent attorney is I have an idea. If I had $1 for every time I heard that, I wouldn't be doing this podcast. So we all have ideas. So what from that for the aspiring entrepreneur listening to this, what would be some advice that you would give to that person, given all that you have been through? And seems like you're turning the corner. You're still fighting a good fight. So I'm interested in this one, given your kind of your history and all that you've been through.
Now, before your words are finished, as I said before as a joke, I got to answer all of that. But that one about what was the hardest, that was too general, and I really couldn't grab one. But this one's kind of easy. There's only 2 or 3 things, and they're hardcore. Just take them empirically, what they mean. You got to write it down and write a plan and dream about it. Nothing ever happened in the universe, the wheel, until someone had the idea, they created it. Don't type it into your phone. It connects with your brain consciously and dreaming better with writing it down. Put it in a book. These are your dreams. And get serious and get specific and get big. This is not me, man. This is Tony Robbins. I walked on fire with Tony Robbins twice when I was 23 or 21 and then 29, something like that. Write it down. When you're about to climb a 12,000-foot mountain, you can't look at the 12,000-foot mountain. You got to do baby steps. So 10,000 steps, 20,000 steps, 30,000 steps. All of a sudden you're on the top of the mountain. You got to pay attention to walking during those steps. So baby steps, write your plan down. Failing to plan is planning to fail. Hug that baby right there. If you don't tell a girl you're going to go out on a date with her and plan the dinner and this and that, you ain't getting nowhere. And there's no such thing as the word try. You either do it or you don't. You know, you pick up that microphone in front of you, your phone, or you don't pick it up. You know, try to pick up the phone. This is a Tony Robbins thing. Try to pick up the phone. And someone goes, ugh, and they pick it up. I go, no, that's picking it up. So don't take the word try out of your vocabulary. Keep your word. Keep your word. I said I was going to do this tomorrow at 2:00. I was going to put in 4 hours of work. That's part of your plan. Keep your word. And that works for the business as well. When you tell a client you're going to be somewhere, oh, you can call them and cancel, but call them and communicate that you're canceling because you're communicating. Don't just, I'll get back to them. I'll send an email in 3 days. You think emails work quicker than when I was a kid and you just called somebody? I don't know. And then the other 3 little things is what do you want, how to do it, and do it. That's all there is to getting up in the morning, brushing your teeth or eating breakfast or running a business. What do you want, how to do it, and do it. And what do you think the hardest one is? What's the hardest one? And what do you want, how to do it, and doing it?
Doing it.
I apologize, Dave. The hardest one is what do you want?
Oh, okay.
To get a doctor after undergraduate, you better have a what I want reason. Because how to do it, call up a doctor, and he says you got to do 4 more years graduate, you got to do internship, you got to work here, you'll be 35. Now you own $1.5 million in education degrees, and now you're going to work making money. You ain't going to make it if you think it's just about money when you're 35. You ain't going to get through 80 hours a week as a doctor.
For sure.
You got to want it. Yep. And everything, I'm sorry, it seems like I'm preaching, but you asked that question. If you know what you want, someone else did it. Call them up, ask them how, and then get out of bed and do it. The first one is the thing that determines the other 2 are easy. Look somebody up that's done it. That's the how, and get out of bed and do it. Keep your word and make a plan. Write it on a piece of paper. Just write it down. Yeah. Go to work. Don't go to bed.
No, man, I like that. And hey, look at the audience, man. Matt, he left jewel after jewel. You could tell he's had some experience, not only operating a business for over 40 years, but developing and now selling a product that he's kind of been doing for a while now. So he definitely has some jewels that he's dropped on us over this last hour. So hopefully you guys had the pen, had the paper, you're writing down, and you may have to go check out this interview again just to make sure you heard the things that you've heard. But I mean, this was a good one, and hopefully you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. I will catch you guys, audience, on the next one. You guys take care. Peace.
Who's your daddy?